The Florida Panthers are officially in a position where they control their destiny with 15 games left. One Panthers prospect has been signed to his ELC, and we're going to discuss what we would want to come out of the GM meetings in South Florida. We're going to discuss it here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, March 15th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and send in your screenshot of your subscription and your screenshot of your 5-star rating on whichever podcast app you listen to Locked On Panthers for your chance to win 2 free tickets to an upcoming Florida Panthers home game. Best of luck, everybody. So, if you guys are wondering why this is a later release on a Wednesday, usually on Wednesday shows, most times there's a game. And we release it right at midnight for you guys to get as soon as you wake up on your commute to work. But there is a different reason for this to be released a little after 10 a.m. as my clock says 9:35 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. And it's because Jacob and myself, we both stayed up to watch all the games as far as the Panthers scoreboard watch on Tuesday night, which is a great opportunity to bring my guest in, Jacob Winans. It's a Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Panthers got a whole bunch of help. 5 out of 5 results went in the Florida Panthers' favor, which we'll say in a few minutes. But Jacob, welcome back to the show. And it's a little bit of a lighter note for us here on the show, despite the Florida Panthers not playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here, first of all, and then second of all, yeah, it was a fantastic night across the league for the Panthers. If you're a Panthers fan, last night was probably one of the most enjoyable nights you're going to have all season. On a night where the Panthers don't even play, they got a ton of help, and it was, I honestly I didn't go to bed until all the games ended because I was just enjoying it too much. We got to see some really good hockey, got to root for a lot of teams that are not necessarily teams that we usually root for, but they're doing us some favors now. So yesterday was definitely an enjoyable day of hockey.
And call me crazy. At most, I had 3 screens on of games as far as overlaps for all the scoreboard watch, as well as watching the World Baseball Classic at the same time with Dominican Republic facing off against Israel, which Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico play tonight for winner advances and loser gets eliminated. So I'm Puerto Rican, so I'm hopefully cheering on for a win for mi isla. But let's talk about the results that happen for the Panthers. Montreal goes into Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh result doesn't. I wasn't gonna be too angry if the Pittsburgh Penguins did end up winning that game, because I still think they're locked into wild card 1. But Montreal goes into Pittsburgh feeling good about themselves, go with a 6-4 win in regulation. The New York Rangers go face off against the Washington Capitals on the Big City Greens game, which was a very entertaining product, more entertaining than I thought it would be. I would definitely want the NHL to do a broadcast like that again. The Nashville Predators defeat the Detroit Red Wings by a final score of 2-1. Up early, they don't get as many shots on goal on Ville Husso. The Red Wings make a late push, but Nashville ends up winning this. The Edmonton Oilers, right now the Ottawa Senators are on a West Coast trip. They dropped against Vancouver. They dropped this one against the Edmonton Oilers by a final score of 6-3. And then the biggest one of the night, the Los Angeles Kings facing off against the New York Islanders, and they win 5-2 in regulation. All of these were regulation wins for each of these games, and the New York Islanders went up early, and then the LA Kings used a 4-goal second period to just make this one in doubt for the New York Islanders. And right now, Jacob, the Islanders have a 551 points percentage. The Panthers have a 445 points percentage. After tonight, where the New York Islanders play the Anaheim Ducks on the road, a 10 p.m. puck drop, the Panthers will have 3 games in hand. But regardless of even if the Islanders were to come out with a point tonight, yes, the Panthers still control their destiny. Yes, that is correct. But for weeks, we've been talking about those teams behind the Panthers who had the better points percentage and had the various games in hand. At one point, I believe Buffalo had 6 games in hand against the Panthers. After tonight, where they face off against the Washington Capitals, that'll be equal. And with a win, Buffalo will equal points. So they've dropped a few here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not ready to say I'm not ready to be just overly excited about the games in hand for the Panthers, unless the New York Islanders obviously lose in regulation tonight, which I'm not counting on. But I'm not ready to just be fully, what's the word, having my hopes up about the Panthers just going full about them going full speed ahead, and we know the inconsistencies of this team too. That's the thing. But of course, a regulation loss for the Islanders tonight helps. But how are you viewing this?
Yeah, I think as far as the standings watching goes, it went as well as it could have for the Panthers last night. Now tonight, when the Islanders play the Ducks, of course, you go into that game expecting the Islanders to win. They're going to come out. They're going to play a really pissed off game because they dropped when they needed to have last night. And they want to put some separation between themselves and the Panthers right now. I don't think you can go into a sense of panic should the Islanders win that game. I think that should be the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
But the Panthers at the end of the day still control their own path to the playoffs. It's just about winning games still. It's such a simple thing to say, but it's about going out and actually doing it.
Yep.
The Panthers, really what happens in the standings, it's very helpful, which is what's happened since the Panthers have played their last game. But it doesn't get you in. The only way to get in is to win these games. So the opportunity has been put in front of the Panthers, but it's up to them to take it. It's going to be a really interesting race to the finish of this season. I think it really is going to come down to a 3-team race between the Panthers, the Sabres, and the Islanders. I don't think the Senators have it this year to make a chase all the way to a playoff spot. They have heated up, and they look like a team that may be really dangerous next season. The Atlantic is not going to get any easier going forward, so the Panthers have their work cut out for them, not just this year, but long term. But yeah, I think it's a 3-team race: Sabres, Islanders, Panthers for that last wild card spot. I think Pittsburgh has theirs locked in, and it's going to be about winning the games because the opportunity has been put right in front of the Panthers. It's on the tee for them, and it's up to them to make the most of it. We've seen the Panthers in the past, the 2017-18 season where the opportunity was right there for them. They went all the way to the best record in the NHL post All-Star break. They really had a good chance to get in, and then they dropped a couple of games they should have won against the Senators and the Oilers, who were bad at that time, that they really had control of. So you're looking for a little more consistency, beat the bad teams, contend with the good ones, and scrape out a couple wins there. And I think we've got a really good shot.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of have a little bit of hesitance when it comes to getting the hopes up. But if the New York Islanders do get only 1 point out of their matchup against the Anaheim Ducks, and the Florida Panthers do win tomorrow against the Montreal Canadiens, even though the Panthers will be behind in points, they would pass the New York Islanders in points percentage. So a little bit of a perspective there. And if the New York Islanders lose in regulation tonight against the Ducks, even before the Panthers hit the ice on Thursday, the Panthers will pass the Islanders in points percentage. But still, win your games. That is the most important thing here for this team. And let's see what they can do. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to talk about a signing for the Panthers. And this is the time of year where the prospects are out of their college season and or junior, and make their decision to sign their contracts with their respective clubs that have their rights. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about FanDuel. And we're at the midway point through the NBA season. It's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line, point scores, to threes drained. Plus, FanDuel lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. Don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment number 2 here on this March 25th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Another edition of Winans Wednesday. Jacob Winans is back for another edition of the show. And Jacob, so we had a signing a few days ago with the Florida Panthers, third round pick from the 2022 NHL entry draft, 93rd overall. Left-handed defenseman Marek Alscher has signed his ELC with the Florida Panthers, played this last season with the Portland Winterhawks. And then after this season, even though he can go to Charlotte, he has 2 years of eligibility to go back to junior if the Panthers so want him to do so. I mean, that's what Evan Nals is doing right now, even though he has his ELC signed. But let's talk about this. 6'3", 196 pounds at 18 years old, and a chance to even get bigger as his body matures. And he's a guy who is more of a stay-home defenseman, can hit, and a guy who is great around the blue paint as far as clearing pucks. And he's top in PK minutes in the WHL this season for the Panthers. He's not going to be on the roster next season. Let's already temper our expectations there as far as that. But we've consistently talked about how these are the draft picks that the Panthers do need to. I mean, let's think about their past draft, where the first round pick was traded for Sam Reinhart, and then the second round pick that was traded was the Sam Bennett trade to Calgary. So their first 2 picks were defensemen. Of course, Marek Alscher was the first one. Ludvig Janssen was the second one in the 4th round. But these are the picks that the Panthers do need to hit. And right now, the Florida Panthers also have 46 contracts out of a maximum 50 on their team. And 21 of them, UFAs and RFAs, are going to be either renewed or expired going into next season. Number 1, what are your thoughts on Marek Alscher? And number 2, who do you think is next to put pen to paper as far as ELC signed for the Panthers?
Yeah, so obviously Marek Alscher, he's a defensive defenseman, stay-at-home guy, does a lot of the dirty work, clears pucks, has a good first pass. He's a big guy. I think he's gonna get significantly bigger. I think his playing weight will end up over 200 pounds. At 6'3", that's exactly what the Panthers are missing. Height, weight, strength, a stay-at-home guy. Now, these type of defensemen tend to develop at a little bit slower pace than offensive defensemen or forwards. So we shouldn't expect him to make a big NHL impact until at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 years from now, when he will really settle into an NHL role. But it's important to remember that as we do sign these prospects, as prospects come through the pipeline, One, these are the guys that are going to keep the cup window open for longer. Everyone knows that when you have a team that's contending, you can't afford to keep everyone, and it's about replacing those guys, preferably from in-house, having good prospects who can replace guys as your cup window extends. And we're on an 8-year timeline right now with Barkov and Kachuk. That's the goal. You got to win a cup within that window. It's a long amount of time, but we're talking about a guy who's 18 years old. You project 8 years out from now, 20, 25, 26 years old. His timeline falls perfectly in with where the Panthers are. But at the same time, any prospects that are signed or unsigned are also valuable as trade assets. So that's not to say anyone that we mentioned in this segment is trade bait, but you also have to remember that the better your prospects are, the better your trade capital or pedigree is as far as being able to go get players and win now moves. So I like the signing. I think he's going to be a really good stay-at-home defenseman. I liked him on draft night, and Tom McLean, one of our guys with Panther Parkway, he's been talking for years about how the Panthers need to get bigger on defense and more height, more weight. And Alscher definitely brings that. As long as his skating trends positively towards an NHL level skater, he's got all the physical tools necessary. But to answer your second question, guys that I think have the best shot at being the next prospect signed, there's some obvious ones. Very obvious one, Mackie Samoskevich out of Michigan. I don't think there's anything really left for him at the college level after this year. I think he's a virtual lock to sign his ELC and make the jump to pro. I honestly, depending on where the Panthers are in the playoff chase, I could see him jumping right into the NHL lineup right now when he does sign. If the Panthers are in a spot where they can afford to give him games, or if they see that he could be an asset to the NHL team right away, even on a practice basis without going into a game itself. Obviously, there's some cap work to do with that. So, adding anyone with the Panthers' current cap constraints could be challenging. But I would not be too surprised if that's the case. Second on my list, I've got Mike Benning, University of Denver. He honestly could have signed after last season if he wanted to. He literally accomplished everything there is to accomplish at the college level, won a championship last year, scored the game-winning goal for that. But he's been even better this season, and I think he's a really smart guy, decided he needed a little bit more seasoning at the college level, wanted to improve his defensive game, and I think it's paying off for him. But he's an NHL legacy. His dad is a former Panther. His brother, Matt Benning, is a NHL veteran, so he's a guy who knows what it takes. And then I had two other ones here on my list. I've got Ludvig Jonsson, who had an incredible World Junior campaign for Team Sweden. I could see him getting his ELC at some point soon. And I have a kind of underrated guy, very underrated, 5th round pick last season, right now playing for the Sarnia Sting in the OHL. I've got Sandis Vilmanis. I like his game a lot. I think he's a good energy guy, future bottom 6 player, but I could see the Panthers signing him and then returning him back to juniors.
Yeah, and Mike Benning, 34 points in 38 games, a 4th round pick for the Panthers, and man, what a find for the Panthers, getting him that deep into the draft, number 95 overall for the Panthers. 34 points in 38 games, 13 goals, 21 assists for the Panthers. And let's also not forget his teammate, Jack Devine. I don't think he'll get an ELC right away for the Panthers, but he's a later round pick for the Panthers, and he just got his first hat trick for the University of Denver. And let's not forget that Mackie Samoskevich also got second team Big Ten honors just the other day for the University of Michigan. So great. So encouraging signs that the Panthers will be will have that pipeline ready to play in Charlotte coming next season. And who knows, maybe if they're curve is going the right direction, maybe some NHL action. And a silver lining about being in a cap crunch is more playing time for Lucas Carlson and Matt Kiersted out down in Charlotte. And, they got a little bit of a taste of the NHL last season. And now they're getting that more of that development time and improving. And Matt Kiersted is TJ Schlott was a play-by-play voice of the Checkers, was talking about how he's getting more into the rushes, playing inside the hashes and all that stuff. And the point production for Lucas Carlson is there too as well. So which is, if you do re-sign a Radko Gudas, it creates a little bit of a logjam there for Carlson and Kiersted as well. So that'll be a big decision for Bill Zito. But one name that we haven't mentioned yet is Jacob Kaz for the Panthers, and not necessarily about whether he should be signed to his ELC or not, but an unfortunate incident that happened in his game out in Finland the other day is a fractured neck, and the first reports were saying that he was probably going to never play hockey again. And he did play in the World Juniors this last go round, and but they did say that he is on the way to recovering fully, but he won't play the end of the season. I looked up the play near the boards. I couldn't really tell exactly what happened. The camera view was not the best view, but I did see the play that crashed him towards the boards, and you already see the opponent like waving somebody because they saw that Jakob Kaz was definitely not okay. Any thoughts on Jakob Kaz as far as the injury?
Well, the first concern, of course, is his health. We don't really care about his long-term projections with the Panthers or anything like that. We just want him to be okay health-wise. It could have been much, much worse. Early reports were that, yeah, like you said, that he may never play hockey again and that he was lucky not to be paralyzed. We do know that the player who hit him, I was not able to even find a replay of the incident. I do know that the player who did lay that hit was suspended for multiple games. But it's a very really unfortunate play. It's one of the dangers of hockey. It's you can do your best to play it clean and avoid injury, but at the end of the day, it's a high speed game and there's a lot of risk involved. You hate to see that for a young prospect who has NHL aspirations. But the most encouraging news is that they expect him to make a full recovery, and hopefully we obviously are really hoping that he can make a full recovery to the point where he can play hockey again at the highest level and live out his dream of playing in the NHL, preferably in a Panthers uniform. So encouraging news on his health, that they expect a full recovery. That's just heartbreaking news when you see a guy, especially a young player with everything in front of him, suffer an injury like that. But if there's some encouragement that you can look to in a situation like this, it's right in the Panthers' own pipeline. Logan Hutsko had a very similar situation in his journey before being drafted by the Panthers, suffering a broken neck in his development, and he's since rebounded, made a full recovery, and looks like he may be an NHL player in the future as well. Already doing some great things with the Charlotte Checkers right now. So hopefully Jakob Kaz can continue his hockey career, and this is just a minor setback for a major comeback.
Yeah, and like we said, quality off the ice is what we're looking for more importantly, and we're cheering for the Czech forward as he makes a full recovery, hoping for the best for forward Jakob Kaz. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where the GM meetings are currently going on in South Florida. We're going to talk about some of the speculations that might be spoken about, or what we would like to see changed as far as that. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about Built Bar. And if you're looking for are you looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try Built Bar. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. What's even better is that they're healthy: 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. Now you don't need to wait to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get your local Walmart and Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. Third and final segment here on this Wednesday, March 15th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Another edition of Winans Wednesday with my fellow guest, Jacob Winans. And Jacob, so like we said, GM meetings are going on in South Florida right now, which is so great if you're a Florida Panthers fan. If you think about All-Star game being here, GM meetings being in a great climate, it gives me all the faith that even when the Panthers are up for a new arena deal, I believe 2028. That's a while from now. That they are in a good position to stay. That's just a little bit of first thoughts there as far as that. But as far as the meetings go and some of the speculation that of what was talked about or what could have be the GMs be talking about, we won't know officially until Gary Bettman talks to the media later this week. And there's one of the talks is expanded review for puck over glass and high sticks. And something that Jeff Marek spoke about is what is the problem as far as sports lately? It's time of game and length. Baseball is doing it with the pitch clock now for this season. And I'm not sure how much more review we should have in the NHL as well, because we've seen these long reviews that we're just waiting here. And then, of course, our thoughts are the longer a review is, the more the opportunity for it to be overturned. What are your thoughts on a possible expanded review for the NHL?
Personally, I don't love it. I think in general, I mean, I'm not in these rooms. I've never been in a replay center, in the replay operations where they have all these camera angles and review everything, and break all these plays down. I've never been in that situation. I've spoken to Dave Jackson from ESPN, the former ref, about the review process, and it personally, I feel like it can be a lot quicker. I think a lot of these things, I don't necessarily understand why the official on ice official has to put on the headset and go take out the iPad and look through everything with the replay center. I think for the most part, the replay center can quickly review just about anything and just let the on ice official know what the call is. I feel like a lot of these can be done a lot quicker. And then there's some that are just kind of tedious and really unnecessary to even review at times. I don't know about expanding the reviews for high sticks and puck over the glass. I think the puck over the glass penalty is kind of dumb in general. I don't really love that penalty unless it's clearly intentional. I know that would be a judgment call to see if it's clearly intentional, but a lot of times this is such a high speed game. Players, it's a complete accident, and I really don't feel like it should be penalized the way it is. I would love to see some adjustment there. But yeah, I don't love expanded review. I don't really see the need for it as far as something that they need to expand upon. I'm good how it is with that. One thing I would like to see change as far as reviews go, can we please get some consistency on goaltender interference at this point? I mean, yes. How many more GM meetings are we going to go to before we have some clarity on what is actually goaltender interference? We've seen that bite the Panthers multiple times this year, and it gets everybody. Every team has at least a handful of goaltender interference issues throughout the season where it's either against you or you have a goal taken off, and it's like, this is dumb. Like, why are we still debating this? So if we're going to talk about reviews, it should be with goaltender interference, not with puck over the glass and expanded high sticks.
Yeah, and it leaves you scratching your head, which is the motion I just did a few seconds ago. And for sure, and Also, we also got to consider operating costs for adding cameras around the arenas too, for if we want to have a clearer view of what puck over glasses. I mean, let's not forget in the playoffs, it took a while for a Tampa Bay Lightning goal to be taken off against the Panthers because the puck went over the netting as well, which helped the Panthers at the time. I believe that was Game 4, if I'm not mistaken. But still, the Panthers didn't do anything as far as like getting a win there. Another one is instigator penalty. As far as hard hits, we're seeing hits more. We're seeing more and more that even when hits are clean, that that your teammates are going after a guy because of course you want to defend your guy. And this, like you said, this is a fast game. You never know what the intent of someone is as far as trying to hurt someone, or whether your peripherals are slightly off, so you might not see it. You might be making judgment yourself as a player on whether it was intentional or not, and about who gets who gets to go to the box for getting in a scuffle after a big hit. I mean, we were debating just the other day in our chat about Radko Gudas going to the box for a roughing penalty, and then we saw a replay. I'm like, the hell did he do? What like we didn't see anything that would that would require Radko to be going to the box as well. So that's also, and I feel like the NHL is slowly trying to take fighting out of the game, but at the same time, I'm not making something for or against it. But if there is a hit that you deem dirty as a player, and even if they don't call it, are the players just going to stand there? I don't know. I don't know if I'm in that position that I can.
Right. It's a tough one because a lot of this it stems back to officiating, right? So officiating, if everything is called fairly, and the officials are policing the action, then you don't have so many vigilante players trying to take matters into their own hands on the ice to punish somebody. If the officials properly call the game, and guys who deserve to go to the box go to the box. Like you said, the Radko Gudas situation against Vegas, that one was absolutely ridiculous. It made no sense to anyone in the building why they went with the even it up penalty, and it was 4-on-4. I mean, Radko got attacked. Simple as that. He got his helmet ripped off. He's standing there not throwing any punches. He gets attacked, tackled, the dog pile on top of him. Like, I didn't understand that at the time, and we've seen that way too often, where the officials will simply pull one guy from the scrum on each side and call it even though it's not even. A lot of times these situations are not even. And then with the with the instigator penalties, I feel like they need to be more strictly enforced. It used to be, and I'm not necessarily a hockey purist who wants to take us back a decade and how the game should be played. I really don't believe in that. I feel like the game can always grow and evolve, but it used to be kind of an unwritten rule that you don't hit a star player and you don't hit a rookie. If you don't throw big hits on a star player or a rookie, you're usually not going to have problems. Everyone else is fair game. Right now, we're kind of seeing a trend where if you throw a big legal hit on anyone on the ice, someone's in your face dropping the gloves and ready to jump you. I feel like that's bad for player safety. I feel like it's dangerous because oftentimes these guys just threw a clean hit. They're not expecting to drop the gloves, and all of a sudden they've got an angry dude flying in their face with fists out. It's a dangerous situation to be in, and I feel like that can lead to injury. I feel like that if we're looking to cut down on fighting and the unnecessary fights, you have to start with this. Hockey is a physical game. It's a full contact sport. Hitting is part of it. And to me, unless it's a star player or a rookie, that guys that you are really, it's really your responsibility to protect out there. I feel like everyone else, if you get hit, you take your hit, you get up and you move on, and maybe hit somebody back on your next shift. I think a perfect example of this would be Jacob Trouba has hit on Nazem Kadri earlier this year. And post game, Kadri said straight up, he's like, "No, nothing wrong with it. Clean hit. I got back up, and we keep it moving." I mean, that's really all it is. If you get hit and you're okay, then you keep playing. That's hockey. I really don't see the need for guys who, one, it's usually, a lot of times it's not even a guy who's an enforcer who jumps into fight. It's just the closest player on the ice is jumping into fight. We don't want our skill guys getting involved in fights to avenge a clean hit. I mean, that's how guys get hurt. That's how guys miss games. And we want to see the skill be the skill. We want guys who are good hockey players to play good hockey, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to drop the gloves all the time. So player safety is going to be a huge topic of discussion. Guaranteed officiating, player safety. And one other thing, since we're on the topic that we didn't touch on, I kind of wanted your opinion on it as I was reading up on the GM meetings, some increased player safety equipment, like laceration guards for wrists, for necks. We've seen some major player safety concerns as far as skate lacerations as the speed of the game picks up. Where do you stand on making things like that mandatory, or highly recommending them, or even putting forth some kind of incentive for players to wear those? Where do you stand as far as that stuff is concerned?
I think it should be highly recommended, because you think about Evander Kane, what happened to him earlier in the season. I believe it was against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and then you see him like this, skating all the way to the locker room, down the tunnel. And I believe it was 2 seasons ago, there was Patrick Hornquist also had his skate go down his hip, I believe, and then he was skating off the ice too. So I do believe that it should be optional for the players, but it should be something that should be added for the players. And I do think I also do think about this should be at their disposal here. But at the same time, these guys are adults and they can make the decision they want. It's like wearing a cup too, as a skater too. You can choose whether to wear one or not. But if you do get hit there, you do face the consequences, and being hit there isn't enough of a punishment. But I do think that it should be there at the as a resource for the players more and more. And hey, if you happen to want to wear these, there could be a financial incentive. And of course, any more money squeeze is I don't know, maybe like an extra mortgage payment for these houses, an extra vacation for a player to treat their families in the off season. So these players could use the extra cash for it, even though they make a lot of money.
I agree. I think I don't think we're at the point where anyone's going to make it mandatory, because we've seen pushback on making even visors on helmets mandatory. I mean, the players are creatures of habit. They get comfortable, and they don't want to change the routine too much. But I think if you make some sort of incentive, encourage it in young players, I think it could really go a long way. As Panther fans, we know the dangers. We've seen Richard Zednik. We've seen some of these incidents, and you don't want it to be the next one that causes change. Huberdeau getting his Achilles stepped on. You don't want. You would hate to see a tragedy be the reason for a rule change. So I think player safety is going to be a huge topic of discussion at the GM meetings as well. Not just the fighting aspect, but protective equipment and a whole host of other things that I'm sure we haven't even touched on.
Yeah, goalie pegs is another one about how they're put together, but those goalie pegs are necessary, because you can't have the goal stay there, because if you knock the back of your head on it and the goal doesn't fall off, you're just risking even more injuries. So it's about how to consistently keep those pegs on, and how it's appropriate to be removed if there is a big collision at the net, and how much drilling is and those are for ops needing to, and it's a science that I'm not fully grasp on as far as goalie pegs there, but that's another topic of discussion for that. But Jacob, I want to thank you for coming on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Another big scoreboard watch tonight for the Panthers as the Buffalo Sabres and the Washington Capitals face off against each other tonight. We're rooting for a Capitals win. And of course, the New York Islanders facing off against the Anaheim Ducks in Southern California, which we're hoping for a Ducks win tonight. And then the Panthers, they'll be on the ice tomorrow. So a bit more activity, despite it being another off day for the Panthers. But tell everybody where they can follow you online.
For sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Winans 8. The chase continues. Go Caps, go Ducks.
Awesome, Jacob. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week, my friend.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows in the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Now make your second listen, Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game NHL on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.